Some problems never disappear, they survive reforms, elections, scandals, and even revolutions. That alone should bother us, because if a system truly wanted something fixed, it would not take decades. It would not repeat the same failures under new names. So the uncomfortable question is this: what if some problems aren't broken at all? What if they're working exactly as intended, not to help people, but to sustain the systems built around them? Once you notice that pattern, it becomes hard to ignore how often failure looks suspiciously stable. Throughout modern history, the same promises return again and again. This time will be different. This reform will solve it. This new policy will finally fix what the last one couldn't. And for a moment, it looks like progress. Budgets are approved. Task forces are formed. New departments are created. But then time passes, the urgency fades, and the problem quietly remains. Sometimes it even grows. The language changes, the branding improves, but the outcome stays the same, which raises a disturbing possibility. Maybe the goal was never resolution. Maybe the goal was management. When you trace these systems, over time, you start to see strange consistencies. Problems that justify massive funding never seem to reach a finish line. Issues that support entire careers are endlessly studied. Crises that create authority are declared ongoing, and every attempt to fully resolve them runs into the same obstacles: complexity, red tape, political deadlock, lack of resources. But what if those obstacles aren't accidental? What if complexity itself is part of the design? A system that is too complex to finish is a system that can never be shut down. This is where the pattern becomes unsettling. Entire industries form around unsolved problems. Consultants, agencies, oversight bodies, contractors, and specialists whose relevance depends on the issue staying alive. Solving the problem doesn't just remove the problem, it removes budgets. It removes influence. It removes jobs. So instead of solutions, the system produces frameworks. Instead of endings, it offers roadmaps. The problem becomes something to be administered, not eliminated. And once that happens, success is quietly redefined. History offers countless examples of this cycle. Programs launched during emergencies that never fully end. Temporary measures that become permanent structures. Reforms that expire just in time to justify the next reform. Each layer built on top of the last, until the original problem is buried under infrastructure designed to respond to it. At that point, fixing the issue would require dismantling everything built around it, and dismantling systems is far harder than building them. What makes this even harder to confront is that no single person has to plan it. There doesn't need to be a secret meeting or a hidden agreement. Incentives do the work quietly. If careers advance when problems persist, persistence becomes normal. If authority expands during crises, crises become familiar. Over time, people within the system stop asking how to end the issue and start asking how to navigate it. The problem shifts from being an emergency to being an environment. Public frustration grows in these moments. People sense something is wrong, but can't quite explain it. They hear constant talk of solutions, yet nothing ever truly changes. And when questions become louder, the system responds with more process, more studies, more delay. The appearance of action replaces action itself. Exhaustion sets in, and exhausted populations are easier to manage than hopeful ones demanding real change. What's rarely discussed is what happens when someone tries to genuinely fix one of these systems. The resistance isn't always loud. Sometimes it's procedural. Budgets don't clear. Support disappears. Timelines stretch. The fix becomes unrealistic, not because it can't work, but because it would disrupt too much stability. In these moments, doesn't mean solving the problem. It means keeping the system intact, and that's when you realize the system's true priority may not be the issue it claims to serve. This doesn't mean every system is corrupt or malicious. That idea is too simple and too comforting. The truth is more disturbing. Systems drift. Over time, their survival becomes more important than their purpose. What they were built to solve becomes secondary to what they've become, and once a system reaches that stage, fixing the original problem feels less like progress and more like a threat. So, when you hear that a problem is complicated, that it takes time, that solutions must be gradual, it's worth asking a different question. Complicated for whom? Time measured against what? Gradual compared to whose interests? Because history shows that when something truly must change, systems can move with shocking speed, which suggests that slowness is not always a limitation. Sometimes it's a choice. In the end, the most dangerous systems aren't the ones that fail loudly, they're the ones that fail quietly. Over and over, while growing larger each time, they don't collapse, they adapt, they absorb criticism, they rebrand failure as necessity, and once you see that pattern, it becomes difficult to believe that every unsolved problem is simply unfortunate. Some systems were never meant to be fixed, and the moment you start asking why, you begin to understand how power really works.